So I'm listening to John Deloney, and he's talking to this guy, and he says, you know, it sounds like you've been hurt by somebody in your life. Who's hurt you? And he's like, well, a few people. And John Deloney is like, name them. I really enjoyed that, because you know what? That's true. Part of taking care of yourself, part of healing, part of recovery, part of not having a fixed mindset, whatever you want to call it, spiritual growth, is you have to be willing. AA calls it a fearless moral inventory. In the Bible, it's called putting off and putting on things. But it is taking a chance to step back and be really, really reflective about your life. Not just your life of where you came from, but who you are now and why you are who you are now. Why do you respond the way that you do? Why is it that those little bitty things that seem to not bother other people drive you up a wall? Why is it that nobody else seems to understand simple things like putting things away, and it makes you feel like you're crumbling as a person? Those little things. And when I say you, I mean me. That is 100% projecting. Because in order to really move forward, we have to stop blaming everything on the past. Well, honestly, we have to stop blaming, because the blame game gets you nowhere. It's funny, we tell our children these things, and yet we as adults oftentimes practice them rigorously. We are great at the blame game. We will blame anything we can. We will blame God. We will blame space and time. We'll blame our spouse. We'll blame our children. We'll blame the school system. We'll blame anything for anybody. It is really hard to be accountable for yourself, to be able to look at a situation and take responsibility for the things you are responsible for. Now, I'm not talking about saying, oh, woe to me. This is all my fault. I'm the worst. But I mean like a healthy, mature way of looking at a situation and seeing, how could I have contributed to this situation? What could I have done differently? How could I respond in the future? Because ultimately, at the end of the day, whatever program, whatever spiritual guide, whatever way you want to go, whatever book you read, the bottom line of it is, you've got to put off your old self. You've got to get rid of that. You have got to break it down to the foundation, and you have got to rebuild something new. And in that rebuilding of something new, that's where the magic happens. That's where the putting off happens. But that is where the investigation happens. That's where the research happens. That's where you start looking into your heart and seeing the things that are motivating you to react the way that you do. Me, looking at me, trying to figure out the things that cause me to react the way that I do. How shortly and hostilely and immaturely oftentimes, without thought. And even though your mother tells you you should think before you speak, and your father and your uncles and your brothers and anybody else who ever knew you don't really know what it means until you know what it means. And for me, that wasn't until I understood that you should think before you speak, because your words show your heart. And if the intention of your heart is not good and pure and in love and justness and kindness, then your words will reflect that. But I didn't know that's how that applied when I was a kid and heard that. Now as an adult I do, which I'm thankful for, because now at least I can be cognizant of it and be a little bit more thoughtful in how I react, and hopefully turn myself from reacting altogether into responding. Because ultimately that's how we want to be treated, right? We don't want to be reacted to. We don't want to be yelled at. We don't want to be criticized. I don't want to be criticized. I don't want to be belittled. I don't want to be made to feel worthless. I don't want to be made to feel valueless. I don't want to be made to feel like my voice doesn't matter, my words don't matter, my thoughts don't matter, my presence doesn't matter. And I do not want to cause those feelings to anybody else. First and foremost, of my husband or of my children or of myself. And so as you grow and adjust and change, putting off that old self and putting on the new, taking that fearless inventory and really looking at those places and taking accountability for yourself of the things you've done, that's when you truly start to grow. And don't be misled. This isn't something that's like a light switch. This isn't something that happens overnight. It is not something that happens in a week. It is not something that happens in a month. It is a lifelong process that never ever stops. It's the same thing as being a good steward to your body. You don't brush your teeth once and expect them to stay clean forever. You don't eat spinach once and expect to stay healthy forever. You don't wash your hands once and expect them to stay clean forever. It has to be a daily practice. It has to be a daily thought. It has to be a habit. But the beautiful thing about habits is usually they're little things. They're hard to break, often, or at least I found as far as biting my nails go. But it seems they can be hard things to start, especially if our brain thinks they're good. But little habits tend to have the largest outcome over time. And that's not something isolated, I feel, to our human experience. I mean, you can look at investing. It does the same thing. Little bits over time have a bigger impact than one fell swoop one time. Anyway, put off your old, put on your new. Be thoughtful in your actions. Be cognizant of others. And look at the cows.